Des Moines and all of Central Iowa, welcome to Max World Live. Max World is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Max World. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Max World Live, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, good afternoon. 7 minutes after 3 o'clock on the 19th day of August in the Lord's year 2016. That was the old open because it was an accident. It's all Jeb's fault. What do you think we should do, guys? Should we throw him off the 6th floor tower up here and see if he bounces?
My vote is that was actually a nostalgic trip down memory lane.
I see. Okay. That's the way we'll look at it then, Mr. Myers. Exactly the way I'll look at it. All right, Brian Myers in again today, along with Frank the Verse Thomas, Robert Montserrat. Did you hear any more from the DMART people?
Nope. They have to assess, waiting for water to go down and then see what happens.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And they got a whole bunch of more rain today.
Yeah.
Last night and today.
You can't do much when there's water everywhere.
No, I know that. All right. And Jebediah, of course, is producing, doing the best he can on a Friday. Now, Friday, I don't know if you know this, Brian, but Fridays are 15% more fun.
I think you told me that once.
Yeah. Fridays are 15% more fun. I don't know whether today will be more fun. It will be in the second hour, but the first hour is going to, we got to talk about something kind of tough. But the next hour, I have a young lady coming in who uses horses in her ministry to help heal people. So horses are very therapeutic for some people.
Huh.
And so Anna Bergman is going to come in and she's going to share that with us.
Okay.
So it should be fun.
Can I ask you a question, Mac?
Sure.
Why is it that Fridays are 15% more fun? In other words, why it's not 20?
Can I answer
5?
that? Because Wednesdays are 7.5% more fun.
Well, that's not really helpful, Frank.
Well, if you add 7.5 and 7.5.
Well, I got that.
You got 15.
Thank you. So how did we get to the 7.5 figure? Let's keep tracing this back.
This is a complicated deal.
Okay. All right.
Well, it used to be because of an old cohort of Max cohort, Matty, the Englishman, the Brit, who likes soccer. And he always livened things up on Friday with his British accent.
Okay. You still didn't answer my question. I mean, maybe it was 25%. And you guys, have reduced
we could have whittled it down.
Hey, you two, this is really not important. The audience is already getting ready to push the buttons.
That would never happen.
All right, so we ended yesterday's show on kind of a down note. Because it was announced by the State Department that they finally agree with most Republicans that the $400 million paid to Iran in January was, in fact, ransom money. Now, I've got an article that I'm trying to bring up here from the New York Times, and even they're saying, now they're spinning it already. They're spinning it already to say that only Republicans are saying that. Only Republicans are saying it's ransom. So I went home last night and do what I always do. I get to the national news at 5:30, and I just jump around. Not one. ABC, NBC, CBS, not one of them reported that story. Not one of them. It's not on their websites. It's nowhere. This is going to get washed under the bridge, just like we live in Baton Rouge. It's just gonna go away. Rush was all over it today. Are we just that bad on the conservative side to think news like that is top news, headline news, above the fold, breaking news, and the Democrats what? They They're just liars, cheats, and thieves? Chris?
I'm trying to think of, I was going to make an off joke and say I registered as a Democrat earlier today, and I think it's ransom, so I'm a Democrat then. But that's not true. I'm trying to think
That's good. I'm glad that's not true.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of why they're not covering it. The only thing I can think of is the way that the State Department, Frank, you guys read this yesterday, the way the State Department reported it gave the impression, the way they worded it specifically, that this was not payment for release. It was money we already owed them.
Yes.
And they were just not giving it to them until they did that. So it was part of the negotiation.
And the word that they used was leverage.
It was leverage, or the release was contingent upon.
Well, they were
the
trying
funds,
to originally spin it as just two ships that passed in the night, coincidentally, that these two things just happened to be just coincidentally simultaneous. But as I said yesterday, the State Department was spinning it that it was contingent on the prisoners being released, and we've been told by multiple sources that the prisoners did not get released until the airplane with the cash hit the ground.
So somebody's not telling the
somebody's not telling the truth.
Yeah. But that's the reason why I think the major news outlets aren't reporting it, is because we're conservatives are straining at a gnat, so to speak, to prove the point.
Yes.
Conservatives are what?
We're nitpicking. Is what that phrase means. We're picking at gnats.
Okay.
Nitpicking, right? So we're making a big deal out of, like what you just said, Frank. That we know that the money went, but the prisoners weren't actually released until the money got there, and they were trying to say, well, no, or whatever the case may be. We're nitpicking this small minutia point, and so I think major news outlets aren't going to belabor that point because they figure it's irrelevant. But the problem is, to me, it doesn't matter what came first, the chicken or the egg. The fact is that we both have chickens and eggs. The fact is the United States gave $400 million to Iran, and the State Department said that there was a direct relationship between that and the releasing of these prisoners, which is all fine and good if that's the way they want to do the negotiation. The bigger issue is, why is it that the president wants to communicate that story in a different way? Why is he intentionally covering that stuff up?
But
making it sound as though he's just lying and hiding the truth.
Here's the problem. It goes back to the old Clinton playbook and whatever scandal they had. You stonewall. Then when you finally get to the point where the details start dribbling out a little bit, then you come out and you say, well, that's old news. Can't we move on and learn how not to do that again?
What does it matter?
What does it matter
exactly.
now?
That was yesterday's news. We've moved on, and just ignore it. That's
right.
What we do.
Well, we were joking just before the broadcast started that I no matter what you think of Bill Clinton, I kind of got a kick out of his great remark years ago when he said, when he was asked if his relationship with Monica Lewinsky was sexual or is sexual, he said it depends on what the definition of is, and I thought that was so smart. But your point, Brian, was that even back then, it was all move on, the story's over now, we've done that, just go, nobody wants to talk about the sins of the past or the errors in judgment of our leaders.
Right.
And that's what conservatives are doing. They're trying to say this is a reflection of the character of someone when they're intentionally hiding the truth, and then when the truth comes out, they conveniently get to push it away as old news.
No, I that's exactly where I was going with that when we were off the air, Chris. Bill Clinton didn't get off simply because he was this brilliant attorney that outfoxed the prosecutors. It wasn't that at all. He got off scot-free because nobody had the political will to do what needed to be done.
Well, now, wait a minute.
That's the bottom line.
He was impeached.
He was impeached, and it went nowhere.
Right.
Because nobody in the Senate had the guts to do the right thing.
Because it's okay to oppress, harass, grope, and potentially rape women as long as you support a woman's right to choose.
I don't know if that's true. Well, you really think that's true?
Did you see one feminist organization come out and say anything about Bill Clinton?
Frank's right. I think the feminists during the first Clinton administration, I'm going to say that, first Clinton administration, isn't that a scary thought that there's a second? But during Bill Clinton's administration, the feminists made it clear that they would elect Jack the Ripper if Jack the Ripper would uphold abortion on demand.
Roe v. Wade.
Well, here's the way the New York Times is spinning it. The State Department conceded for the first time yesterday that it delayed making a $400 million payment to Iran for several hours in January to retain maximum leverage and ensure that 3 American prisoners were released on the same day.
There's that word, leverage.
Yeah. Now, is that what the State Department said? Because it's in quotations in this story, so I'm wondering if that's what they really said.
I think so. Frank, did you read that? But I think that was
but I've heard the term leverage about 3 or 4 times on the news last night as in opposition or contrast to ransom.
I believe, Bob, though, yesterday you said that payment was contingent. The State Department said that payment was contingent upon the release of the prisoners.
Yeah, what I see here is a story says that Kirby, I don't know who Kirby is.
He's a State Department official.
Acknowledged for the first time that the U.S. withheld delivery of the cash as leverage until the U.S. citizens had left Iran.
Yeah. So that's a word that's coming from the administration.
Yeah, and according to the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. refused to hand over the $400 million cash payment that was being held at Geneva Airport until Swiss Air Force plane carrying 3 freed Americans departed from Tehran.
Okay, we'll continue with this story later on. Why are some words considered swear words? What's acceptable for somebody who follows Jesus to say when, they hit their thumb with the hammer? We'll talk about that and more coming up live here on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
21 minutes after 3 o'clock, 3:21 in the afternoon on a Friday. Brian Myers in. Is it Meyer or Myers?
With an S.
Myers is in this afternoon with us. And also, of course, Frank the Verse Thomas and Bob Monster at the Cat in the Hat. And Chris will be back here in just a minute. All right, we have a video. Jeb has a video to play, which is Mr. Kirby from the United States State Department. Is it the announcement yesterday? Is that what this is? Is this the live announcement that they made yesterday, or is this an update?
I believe it's the announcement. I'm not sure what this exactly is, but it's him addressing it.
Okay, well, let's roll tape, as we say in the showbiz.
It's a good shot.
Yeah, I sure like his voice.
Well, he looks good.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like he got a bit of a tan.
Yeah. And he's,
Not coming through. Hang on. Give me a sec.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, we were playing there.
That's
It's
fine.
that faulty equipment, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my faulty equipment.
Space station. Somebody get Houston on the phone.
So when I said that later on we're going to talk about swear words and what words Christians should and should not say,
yes,
Jill texted me and said, well, this should be interesting. And I could just hear her voice, well, this should be interesting. So that's the conversation for later on after we get done talking about, and maybe we're done talking about the State Department stuff. I don't know. There's not much more to say. All we're going to sit here is and whine that, once again. But Brian, don't you think this is like one of the most obvious Obama administration lies?
Actually, I don't know that it's the most obvious because there's so many of them that have been just, to me, to you, to Frank, to Chris, all of us see some of the stuff that they've said and done and just said, how stupid do these people think we are that they can say up is down, down is up, black is white, white is black. They say all this stuff and just expect us to believe it. So when something like this comes down the pike, we all go apoplectic. Meanwhile,
hold on, that's a big word. What?
We all go crazy.
Okay.
And the national media, as you just pointed out, they yawn.
Yeah, last night, the 5:30 national news, ABC, CBS, and NBC, unless I got it wrong, but because my thumb was just crazy last night. Every time whatever channel I was on would start the next story, I'd look at it. If it wasn't that one, then I'd go over to the other channel, and then I'd go to the other channel, and I'd go back and forth. So I don't think I missed it. I just don't think any of them covered it, which just amazes me.
Yeah. Well, you guys all remember, I always bring this up, but Benghazi to me was the one that just absolutely just set my hair on fire. For somewhere between 10 days and 2 weeks, they maintained this stupid lie that nobody believed that
movie trailer,
a YouTube video caused a spontaneous riot over there in Benghazi, as opposed to a well thought out, planned, and executed terrorist attack. They maintained that stupid lie that nobody believed for the better part of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
went on the national news.
Oh, yeah.
And there's still people that's perpetrating that lie.
So anyway, I bring that up just to say this is the kind of stuff that's just typical for this administration. It's just another day in a week when they come up with a whopper that we're all supposed to just swallow. And the national media says, yep, move on.
It goes from gun running to the VA to the IRS to, name your scandal.
That's right.
All right, now here's a question I got over text from Brett Black. He said, my question is, what could we possibly owe Iran $400 million for? We actually owed them $1.3 billion is what we owed them.
And that was for what again? I think we talked about that yesterday. Frank, what did we...
Well, I think it was money that we had withheld in Swiss banks or confiscated during the Iran hostage crisis when Jimmy Carter was in office.
That's correct.
And so it was payment that we had withheld for a long time. It probably incurred a lot of interest. Who knows? I don't know. But the point is fine if we're going to hand over the money, but the optics of this at minimum stink. I mean, make sure the money gets there a week earlier or a week later, but have it at an exact moment that these people are released. Even if it was an accident, figure out how to avoid that. I mean, that's just.
Well, and again, if this was something that was going on during the Carter administration and we've owed them money that long, why now? Like, why?
Well, because we're trying to
sudden?
normalize relations and we're trying to be friendly with them and take off some of these sanctions because it's, because of this nuclear negotiations we've entered into. See, if we had never entered into the nuclear negotiations, the money would never have been returned.
That's right. That's right.
I'm looking at a news story here from the New York Times, and it says, but the Iranian press has described the payment as ransom, which fits Tehran's narrative that it has outmaneuvered the Obama administration.
Check.
See, here's the thing that happens. Every time Obama gets up and denies something, Iranians will slap him right in the face with the opposite. They will tell him that they schnookered us in the deal. They're laughing all the way to the bank, and Obama's over here acting like a real dupe, trying to tell us, the Americans, and we know better, that this wasn't ransom.
All right, here we go. The original financial dispute arose because of military goods the United States sold to the Shah of Iran, but never delivered after the Islamic Revolution and the taking of hostages inside the American embassy in Tehran in 1979, November 3rd, 1979. The mullahs, who overthrew the Shah, demanded back the money Iran had paid. The United States refused. 35 years ago, Iran and the United States agreed that a commission set up at The Hague would sort out the claim, among others. In recent years, it became clear that the United States would lose the case, and the only question was how the interest would be calculated. The $1.7 billion the United States paid included accumulated interest on the original $400 million owed to Iran. Mr. Kirby pointed out that the United States paying back only $1.3 billion in interest rather than the billions more Iran had sought was one of the reasons the January deal was so good.
Well, first off, why are we subjecting ourselves as a sovereign nation to the world courts or to The Hague, number one? I mean, that's always been verboten, in my opinion, of any president of the United States isn't going to allow our president to be brought up on war crimes charges. So why are we submitting to The Hague to start with?
I don't know. Let's play the videotape of Mr. Kirby making this announcement from the Department of State. Hold on.
Still no audio.
Okay. Jeb will figure it out.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, I don't know. And, that's one of the things that I would enjoy about a Trump administration, because I think some of that stuff would just go out the window.
You would hope so. I mean, that's the way he talks. Trump talks as though he's going to do that. But again, I mean,
well,
we'll see it if that day comes, right?
What Trump is saying, as being a negotiator, you never take anything off the table. And so whether it's nuclear weapons, whether it's a pinpoint nuclear strike, the money, whatever, you don't take anything off the table. So he's saying that he would be tougher in these negotiations with Iran, and our hostages would have been set free before any negotiation of that nuclear deal started, because we had hostages that went on in coincided with the nuclear deal. They was holding some people of ours. Then the people that were captured on the ship, that's another situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't speak to how Mr. Trump would or would not be in terms of foreign policy in the future. That remains to be seen. But there isn't any question that the current administration has just been a disaster. Sort of wandering around the world in the early years of the administration, apologizing for the United States, and extremely weak in these negotiations, as Frank just pointed out. It's just been a disaster, and we're not getting the truth, just like we never get the truth. We're told stupid stuff that nobody believes, like, the chance meeting between Attorney General Lynch and our beloved Bill Clinton on the tarmac. We're supposed to believe that it just accidentally happened.
Well, keep in mind, Bill Clinton is a lawyer and knows.
A liar?
Well, both, but he's a lawyer and knows better. That's a conflict. That reeks of conflict of interest, right? Just the face of it. Because he himself potentially would be under investigation. If the Clinton Foundation is potentially under investigation, he would be under investigation. How many times would the witness meet with the potential attorney general or the person under investigation?
Well,
I don't know. I don't know why Mr. Clinton and Loretta Lynch had to meet face to face anyway. I don't get that. I mean, with today's telephones and electronics and satellite phones, why would they ever go out in public and do that? They can't be that stupid, can they?
They're getting away with it, man.
That's just it. It's not that they're stupid. Chris just nailed it. They know they can get away with it. That's the thing. You just put your finger on it right there, Chris. They realize they can do almost anything with impunity. So they do. That ought to scare us all to death.
It does scare me to death.
But, it's really a reflection of the moral bankruptcy of our culture. I know that sounds too easy to say, but we don't care when people lie. You've got you've got someone representing the United States in the Olympics. This young man, I don't know how to say his name right, but the sidekick to Phelps here. Right. Here he is doing this terrible thing, and he's just, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to do that. And it's all going to be fine. No big deal. Everybody makes mistakes. How long have we been saying it's no big deal? Everybody makes mistakes. Now, I don't know in regards to the Olympian there. I don't know what the punishment would need to be, but it's just shameful. And I don't think that we are no longer as a broader culture embarrassed by such things.
Well, Chris, they've taken studies and surveys amongst people under a certain age bracket, and always the majority feel that lying and stealing is acceptable, more so than any other time in history.
Wow.
Or not stealing, lying and cheating. Stealing you could throw in there because lying and cheating is stealing, but it's like cheating on an exam, where that would be frowned on 50 years ago. It's acceptable now amongst the young group, amongst the millennials.
Well, I guess all we can do is pray. Pray that something catches up with Hillary before, this all goes down.
Her health.
And you keep saying something about her health, but I don't think that's going anywhere.
I don't know, but Dr. Drew Pinsky, who's a pretty well-known guy, and he's, I think, pretty respected, not a part of the vast right-wing conspiracy, said yesterday in a post trending on Facebook that her health is of grave concern, and the health care she's receiving is of ridiculous. Some of the things is 1950s bizarro world.
I don't think so, but whatever, Frank. You keep picking up that.
Read the article.
You keep picking up that National Enquirer, Frank. This last moment brought to you by the National Enquirer, because smart people want to know. We're coming back. What bad words do you use, and why are they bad?
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Okay, 3:38, 22 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News. And then for part of next hour, we're going to introduce you to a young lady by the name of Anna Bergman. And Anna is a thespian. No, is that right? A horse person.
Thespian's an actor.
Okay, what's a horse person?
Equestrian?
Equestrian.
Yeah.
And she uses her horses in ministry.
Yep.
To help heal people and to comfort them and things like that. So I think that's going to be a really interesting conversation. I'm really looking forward to that. All right. So the other day, you said a word on the radio that somebody texted in on and say that was a bad word to say. Do you remember that, Chris? You said CRAP.
Oh, yeah. No, you said it. And I asked if you can say that on the radio.
Oh, okay. So I said it, and then you asked if I could say it on the radio.
And I said it.
And then you said
it. Say it on the radio.
And then somebody texted in and said, well, that was a bad word. You shouldn't say that word on the radio. And so it got me thinking about bad words. Now, I understand that taking the Lord's name in vain should never be said out of a Christian's mouth. And I have to tell you that I do pretty good with that. I've never really been well, I've always been a blasphemer, but not in that manner. I just wasn't that guy. I mean, I can drop other words just like a sailor can, but taking the Lord's name in vain was never part of my vocabulary. But other names are. What'd you just say?
I said, why is it that sailors have such filthy mouths? And why do they... I feel bad for all the sailors. There's sailors out there that go, I would never talk like that ever. That is just completely ridiculous.
Well, it's not just sailors. It's drunken sailors.
Drunken sailors.
That's right.
Well,
that's right.
In that case, yeah, that's all of them.
What are you going to do with a drunken sailor? What are you going to do with a drunken sailor? What are you going to do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Were you entertained? That was almost as good as the Gaithers.
That was pretty good.
Well, the classic definition of taking God's name in vain would be clearly calling yourself a Christian and not living up to its standards. That's the classic example. And then there's bad words on top of that. But CRAP, crap.
Yeah, Jill said, by the way, that you read that in something. That you were reading a text or something, and you read it, yeah.
But we know that Beelzebub, the definition of Beelzebub is the god of flies, the god of dung. So I think that when referring to certain things of Satan, I think words of the dung nature are perfectly acceptable.
That was over my head.
Dung.
Dung.
Like horse dung.
Yeah. Horse dung.
Poo-poo.
Cow dung. Poo-poo. Crap.
Poo-poo. So you're saying that the word... So you're saying that the word... We're going to start laughing here. It's terrible radio. Just terrible radio. So you're saying crap's an okay word?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. All right. So what about this, Brian? You're kind of new to the group. So every once in a while, I'll use the term feces.
Same thing.
Okay. And I had a guy come up to me at church once and said, "You've got to stop swearing on the radio." And he was serious. And I'm like, "What did I do? What did I do?" And he said, "Well, you," and he had a hard time saying it, but he said, "You say feces. Why is that a bad word?" I'm asking the question.
It's not. You have to have words to describe things, even things that are not, pleasant to us.
Well, but I'm really not describing what comes out of...
Yeah, but when you say that word, feces, everybody's mind goes there.
This is just an interesting conversation, gentlemen.
Well,
it's getting deep.
Poo-poo. Jeez.
You got roll-off started now.
We can't start laughing like this. We'll never get out of here. Oh.
Just deep conversation. Deep.
Hip waders.
Jill said you've lost control of the room. Feces is a medical term, she says.
Yes.
But when I use it as a swear word, big pile of feces.
Well, but you often say it in terms of the committee in your head, the lies that you feel, the negative thoughts that come into your head. You refer to that as the feces committee. It's those negative thoughts, and it's a bad thing, right? Fecal matter is not a good thing. You don't want that in your drink. You don't want that in your food. So obviously that conjures up bad things in your mind.
Here's the problem, though. When you start going down this path, it's very difficult to come up with any kind of objective standard, because different things mean different words mean different things to different people. This whole thing is an incredibly subjective exercise. Right. Somebody can say, "Oh, you know what," and that could be offensive to somebody, and the same person hear someone say, "Oh, crud," and there's not a great deal of difference between the two. But one could be offensive and the other one not.
Heidi, one of our listeners, this is hilarious, just said, "You guys just hit an all-time low." But I fell off my ladder laughing.
Well, Bob said it right. You have to have words to describe things like excrement or feces, but then you have the slang versions of those words that tend to be a little bit more offensive to people.
Well, is the goal then to attempt to refrain from being crude and offensive? I mean, I think that's the scriptures kind of talk about crude language. So the scriptures don't use the following words because we didn't call it the other words. I can't even say some of the stuff, but because the FCC won't allow you to say certain things on the radio, right? But is the goal then just to not be offensive or crude or be respectful in the way that we talk and when we talk about things? But there are some things that are disrespectful and dishonorable and awful and should be accounted for as such. I mean, shouldn't we be able to say this is rubbish? I mean, there are certain things that are in fact terrible.
And why is rubbish not a bad word?
Because it's generally not so it's a
made these words up. Who made the word up, and how did that word get associated with a certain thing or a certain action? So I could go around and I could make up a word right now about the act of defecation. And I could make a new word and everybody could start using it. And then all of a sudden that word gets into the popular lexicon and then somebody says, oh, that's offensive. And I made it up.
That's really how all language works, though. I mean, what you just described is the nature of language, right? We're all just agreeing to the noises that I'm making are noises you hear, and we all as a culture agree on their meanings. They don't have intrinsic meaning. So it's more about attitude and an approach.
For example, in Yugoslavian, a lady friend and I went to a restaurant, and she ordered a jalopy. Jalopy. I'm going in my language, a jalopy is an old junk car. Well, in Yugoslavian, you get a hamburger dish, a spiced hamburger dish, if you order jalopy. So, you know, what makes one word to one person bad and another word to another person, it's okay?
Well, look, if we're talking about a moral culpability here, Chris nailed it again, twice today.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Chris talks...
Don't say that other word.
I won't. I'll wait for later.
Chris was talking about the duty as Christians.
He said duty.
Duty, Brian.
I can't believe you said duty.
All the time to say duty.
That's hilarious.
You know, I grew up on a farm, and I still have... you got. I'm not talking about concerned about what the other person thinks,
right,
as opposed to some objective standard.
But if I was to say horse apples or cow pies, okay.
You guys are going to have to clue me in on this duty stuff.
Now
You've never heard of duty?
Now you live on
in that regard.
Now you live on a farm. You ought to know what a horse apple is. We got a horse whisperer coming in later. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Offense is in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
We'll talk about
D-U-T-Y. Duty.
Duty.
We'll talk about offense and being offended when we come back. We are live in Mac's World on a Friday on The Truth.
The fence that keeps the horse.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Cast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common, everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
10 minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept.
10 minutes before the top of the hour. That is not, by the way, these audio mistakes in the first hour are not Jeb's fault. We're having a computer issue, so I want you to know that. Jill thought that Jeb was really messing up, so she put on Facebook, "Do I have to pay him this month?" That girl, she's just amazing. All right, so top of the hour, I'm going to introduce you to a young lady by the name of Anna Bergman. And Anna is a horse person. What do you call it? Equestrian? Okay. And she uses horses in ministry and to help heal people and to help soothe people. And I'm really interested to hear about this. I love horses. I'm just a huge horse fan. I grew up on a farm and we had horses, but the way we used our horses back then is we used them for work. And then along came a thing called a motorcycle. And then the ATVs. But I can remember Paul coming in from the field, the tractor's out in the middle of the field and he just leaves it there for the night. And he's got a horse that he'd whistle for. And that horse would come running out to the middle of the field. And then he'd get on that horse and ride it back home. And we even had a hitching post outside the house. So
that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we rode horses. And we rode them most of the time bareback. We didn't use saddles. So anyway, that was a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
1800s?
Yeah.
All right. So
back when you were a teenager.
Yeah, thanks. I want to give you my opinion. I bet you haven't heard this before. And maybe you guys haven't. I think you probably have, Chris. One of the things that I did before Jesus mugged me is, Brian, if you and I were having a conversation and I was losing that conversation, but I'm not a man enough to admit that I'm wrong and you're right, I would find something that you said, or after the next thing you said, I'd say, now, I'm offended by that, Brian. And my tone would be like that, and my body language would be like that, and I might even lean forward a little bit. And what it did is it changed the subject. And I thought that was a pretty cool way of communicating. Well, it's not. It's a terrible way of communicating. And that's one of the things that Jesus revealed to me. And so I pray, and I think I think I've accomplished it through him. Through him, I accomplished this. I don't get offended anymore because I realize that being offended is a choice. What one person might say is, well, that doesn't offend me. To the next person, well, I'm offended. Well, why do you choose to be offended? You give me some feedback on that. Do you agree with that? That offense is a choice?
Well, I think there are clearly things that can annoy people based on the way they see things, their experience. There's an awful lot of that can be very subjective. So insofar as that's the case, I'm with you there.
But we got the PC police out who are using certain key buzzwords like racist to just shut conversation down. So if I can call you a racist, anything you say after that is meaningless. It's not to be disregarded, not listened to, not paid attention to. So we're minimizing you as a human being and your thoughts and anything you have to add to the conversation because somebody's going to call you a racist. And there's other keywords like that, misogynist, homophobe. If you've got something legitimate to say about the homosexual lifestyle that is a detriment to them, they just simply call you a homophobe and then they shut you up. Don't talk to him. It's like when you're in grade school and you got your friend and you go, let's not talk to him. Let's not talk to her.
Bob, what do you think about that? I'd be interested in your thought about people choose to be offended. Am I off track there?
No, people do choose to be offended. Sure.
All right. So when somebody says that's offensive, here's a funny question. So when somebody says that's offensive, is it wrong for me to say, why do you choose to be offended? Because that's what I always say. Why do you choose to be offended? Well, that's just offensive. No, it's not. It's offensive to you, but it's not offensive to me.
But being offended is a primal emotional response in a lot of ways. Most of the time, it's not a conscious choice. In other words, I'm not necessarily. Sometimes it is, and I think Frank's kind of alluding to some of those times when it's a choice to be offended. I'm going to choose to be offended by what you say. Atheists are notorious for being morons in this realm. They make up stuff. Oh, I saw a cross, and now I'm physically sick. It's a bunch of junk, and they're lying, and they know they're lying, and it's all ridiculous and all that. But there is sometimes when something is said or done that you have just that emotional response. Man, that just rubs me the wrong way. In fact, we were talking about this in the break. Someone used in a conversation I had recently, they didn't know me very well. I didn't know them. I was trying to get to know them. And they used the Lord's name. They said Christ. They referenced my Lord and King as an aside. They just like a swear word or flippantly. And that's offensive to me. Now, to Mac's point, I didn't choose to be offended and act offended, but it was offensive to me because that's my Lord. And he means a lot to me, and you've used his name degradingly. And so I think in that way, it's a natural reaction to be offended sometimes. There's nothing you can do about it. It's what you choose to do with that moment of being offended that makes all the difference.
Yeah,
if
but
I storm out.
You just cited an objective standard, though. We know from Scripture that taking the Lord's name in vain is wrong. We know that from Scripture.
Sure.
Going back to what Frank was pointing out, is people sometimes manufacture this stuff where they're connecting dots that don't need to be connected to suggest that somehow you're bigoted or you're a racist or what have you. And it's all I get to use this word. It was all rubbish, as opposed to what you brought up, which is an objective standard about the Lord's name.
Brett Black says, I recently heard someone say it's impossible for a humble person to be offended. I do believe there's truth in that statement. I like that. It is impossible for a humble person to be offended.
However, with all due respect to that adage, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, I would say that if I look to the Lord Jesus as my example, he doesn't live up to that standard. He was offended. He was greatly offended. In fact, Jesus was so offended that he went into the temple, made a whip, destroyed tables, flipped things over because he was offended.
But only once.
Okay, well we have that recorded time, but that was offensive to him. He was justifiably offended though, and he took action against that, and that was because they were what's the word?
Money making.
But it wasn't so much that they were defacing God's temple. It should have been a house of prayer, and they were making it a place of profit.
But they were selling what he was giving, what Christ was giving for free and offering for free was salvation, and they was bartering his salvation.
Right. There's a lot packed up in there. So there are times in which we can get offended, and rightly so. Me being offended when someone takes the Lord's name in vain is good, but a humble man doesn't retaliate unjustly. Right? I just let the guy show that he's not a believer.
Yeah.
I let him be a non-believer, and we moved on from that.
Yeah. Well, I've got one group of guys, and then I've got somebody in my life that takes the Lord's name in vain all the time. And now when they do it, I look at them and say, yes, or what'd you say? And they're beginning to back that up a little bit. And I don't care about the other words. But all right, we're out of time. We got Salem Radio Network news coming up next, and then Anna Bergman. You're going to enjoy this conversation. It's all about how horses can heal. It's next, live here on The Truth.